word to wise. Grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple light.
Before we get started, it only takes 2 clicks to become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers. Click. Before we jump into today's video, I wanted to talk to you real quick about a website called Juaso Graphics. It's a really awesome website. You can find all sorts of clothes and other items themed after some of your favorite animes like Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, My Hero Academia, but with a little bit of Blerd seasoning on it. Not only that, you can get 10% off your entire purchase if you use the promo code Blerd Without Fear. So go check out the website, get some awesome apparel, and let them know the Blerd Without Fear sent you. What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, the Blerd Without Fear. Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about Absolute Carnage versus Deadpool number 2 by Frank Thierry and Marcelo Ferreira. We're also going to be talking about Absolute Carnage Symbiote of Vengeance number 1 by Ed Brisson and Juan Frigeri. And we are going to discuss Venom number 18 by Donny Cates and Iban Coelho. So let's start off with Deadpool. Carnage, last time we left off, we realized that Carnage wants his unicorn. Deadpool, the only being alive who's ever bonded with 4 symbiotes at the same time. And, well, technically it's 5, but they're not counting that 5th one, so we're not even gonna talk about it. But also, technically, he's not the only unicorn now, but we'll talk about that a little later. Carnage tasked 3 Z- players in Ravencroft to get the job done. Not because they're good or anything, but because they're there, all of which are dollar store brand Spidey villains you probably didn't think were real because they sound so dumb. Will-O-the-Wisp, who, with the power to change his density, either enough to become intangible, or, for the 8-year-olds in the class, hard as steel. Think Dime Store Vision. And then you have Conundrum, who has no powers whatsoever, but is a smoke and mirrors style villain. Think store brand Mysterio. Freak has the power to evolve and regenerate. Basically, whatever kills him makes him stronger, literally. He's also the dumb one. Carnage gives each of them a spawn of himself and sends them after Deadpool, which admittedly isn't the worst idea ever, but it quickly turns out to be. They do pretty good against him at first, minus falling for one of Deadpool's old substitution no jutsus with the room rigged to explode maneuvers. But things go from sugar to real fast, because one by one Deadpool systematically kills them all. Conundrum gets a sword to the face immediately after the substitution no jutsu, so Will-O-the-Wisp is a tough guy to catch, but he's not so intangible if he doesn't expect an attack. So Deadpool lets him think he's mesmerized, one of Will-O-the-Wisp's other powers, and makes him think he's got him dead to rights. And while old Willow goes for the kill, prison shank time. And Freak, well, he's harder to kill. He's immune to bullets, fire, grenade launchers, bazookas, but the ridiculous Liefeld-esque gun that Deadpool once stole from Cable, well, that one cuts the mustard. And once his evolution cycle is exhausted, Deadpool War of the Worlds him, and by War of the Worlds him, I mean he kills him with water. Because Deadpool comic. But the real fight has only just begun, because by the time Deadpool finishes lining up each and every one of these mooks, storming Norman Osborn, who still thinks he's Cletus Cassidy despite having met him personally, has put his quarter up on the arcade cabinet and he is ready to throw hands with the Merc with a mouth. Now, next up on the hit parade is Absolute Carnage Symbiote of Vengeance number 1. This tale, it takes place well before Absolute Carnage number 1, where in Nicaragua, former Ghost Rider Alejandra Jones, a character who popped up back in Ghost Rider Volume 7, number 1 in 2011, has been protecting the local people, keeping them safe from everything from narcos and drug lords and militias and anything else that ails them. But unfortunately for her, one of the new threats coming to this little villa
is Carnage, and he has come to terrorize, but more importantly, he's not just there to kill the local people. He is looking for Alejandra. Because you see, during the Venom Circle of 4 story arc, which I may do something on later, maybe just depends, the workload is very heavy right now. But during that story arc, the Venom symbiote had bonded with the spirit of vengeance. And when that same spirit went back to Alejandra, the Codex went with it, therefore giving her a Codex. It's really weird and supernatural and crazy magic-y stuff, so just don't ask no questions. Now, Johnny Blaze, still the king of hell, but an admittedly inexperienced one, knows this. He wants nothing more than to help her because he feels personally responsible for her becoming the spirit of vengeance in the first place because he gave up the curse and it went to her. But he can't do anything because unlike Slippery Mephisto, he doesn't know how to leave hell. He can only astrally project himself from hell. You see, being the king grants him a lot of cosmic power, but in the grandest scheme of things, itty-bitty living space. So he contacts the only other person he trusts, Danny Ketch, his original successor and little brother. Also arguably the Ghost Rider most people are low-key familiar with because he was a Ghost Rider for quite some time. He's, in that regard, kind of almost like the Marvel equivalent of Wally West's Flash, where most people who are my age in their mid to late 30s who grew up with that particular character, some people forget that Barry Allen was dead that entire time. And not that Johnny Blaze was dead, but he just wasn't Ghost Rider. Danny Ketch was Ghost Rider for a good little clip. But anyways, we're not here to compare that sort of thing. Ketch isn't interested in helping Johnny because he doesn't want to be the spirit of vengeance. He never has wanted to be the spirit of vengeance. That's always been a major point of contention for Danny Ketch. But he goes to help his brother anyway. He goes to Nicaragua and encounters a family just trying to stay alive. They don't want none, and they even warn Danny he doesn't either. One of the children, a young girl, even tells him that the demon, referring to Carnage, is fighting Alejandra. Danny tries to help Alejandra win this fight. He's trying to get her to get the hell away from Carnage because Johnny has explained to him that Carnage wants her, and if he gets her, bad things are gonna happen. And he's able to hold Carnage back with his chain long enough that Alejandra has an opportunity to get away, but Alejandra doesn't want to use this opportunity to run and hide. She wants to save this town and stop Carnage, and she dies for it. Carnage shanks her and immediately rips her spine out, becoming the symbiote of vengeance. But don't worry, Blerd Nation. This issue explains, albeit loosely, that Carnage never keeps everything he gets from the codices he takes. It's only temporary, but this power boost, complete with his own Carnage cycle, lasts just long enough that Carnage can dig in that ass. Danny eventually has to whip out the big guns and prepares Carnage for his ultimate weapon, the Penance Stare. And for those unfamiliar with the Penance Stare, it is a stare that unleashes the pain and suffering of every sin you've ever committed tenfold upon you. But Carnage, like some select few in the Marvel Universe, turns out he's immune to it. Many often complain that the Penance Stare has been nerfed over the years, but honestly, it's pretty much useless on anyone who either A, has no regrets, like Thanos, or B, someone who has nothing to feel penance about, i.e. Captain Marvel or Venom, or C, you have no soul like Johnny Blaze. While Danny is catching Carnage's work, Alejandra, now dead and gone to the place all Ghost Riders go when they die, hell, is face to face with Blaze, and she wants one last chance to go back and make it right. She doesn't care what happens to her soul. She's not worried about going to hell. That's not her thing. What she cares about is doing some good before she ultimately goes off into that good sweet night. And Blaze sends her soul to the body of the little girl who told Danny about her in the first place. But she's not using this body to fight because that would just be weird. She rallies the entire village of people together and they turn on Carnage, standing up for themselves and driving him away by standing together and hucking Molotov cocktails at him. I mean, that tracks. I mean, granted, he's immune to fire at this point, but even if I was immune to fire, I probably wouldn't want anybody throwing, like, not even just one Molotov cocktail at me, let alone a whole village worth. But anyways, you can tell this is early in Carnage's Absolute Carnage career because he still has plenty of Church of Null members who aren't drones yet. And he's pissed that they're trying to police his mission, and he shows them what that can cost you. And now, Danny, free to do whatever he wants now, we realize that he's going to be back as the Spirit of Vengeance long term because he has a new series coming soon, also written by Ed Brisson. And Alejandra is going with Johnny to meet her fellow Ghost Riders in Hell because something big is brewing and Johnny knows it. They all need to get ready because all hell is going to break loose, and for once, that may not be a good thing for the denizens of hell. And now it is time for the moment we have all been waiting for because it's time to go get 'em. Gotta get that Venom. Number 18. If you were looking for answers about what Sleeper had ultimately been up to since he disappeared and was off traveling the cosmos, we do get a little bit of an answer, but I'm gonna go ahead and tell you right now, basically what was going on is that he was traveling across the void and something pulled him closer to his home planet. Something was calling him and pulling him to the Clintar. And when he got to the Clintar tried to absorb Sleeper back into itself. The Clintar was trying to reclaim Sleeper because they need his aid in the fight to keep Null locked away. And Sleeper saw firsthand exactly the threat that Null can pose. Because as Sleeper says, Null told him that he is coming and that he will be free. And much like in the way that Eddie used fire to burn out the connection to Null in his symbiote, Sleeper uses his chemokinesis to create enough acid to completely eat away his connection to Null. And realizing the threat that Null will pose to the Earth because he knows that's the first place he's gonna go, once he gets free, he decides that it's time to come back to Earth and help defend it. And of course, Dylan kind of vaguely understands what's going on here. He's only been around symbiotes for like the last, I guess, in comic book time, maybe the last 2 or 3 weeks. However, all of this just seems crazy to him. I mean, but he's taking it in stride, just the simple fact that Sleeper is the 7th spawn of Venom and that in some weird 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, they're related. And one really surprising thing about Sleeper in this is that we learn he is still using his host, Tel-Kar, who we were first introduced to in Venom First Host #1 in 2018. We don't really know when Tel-Kar died, we just know that at some point during the time that Sleeper was traveling the cosmos, Tel-Kar drowned and wound up dead. And this leaves Sleeper at half strength because without a living host, Sleeper is only half as powerful. So he needs a new host, and it almost seems like Dylan is going to become that host. At least that's kind of what they almost tease at, but it doesn't really come to pass because the Maker comes along and knocks Sleeper on his ass with a huge helping of high-frequency sonic vibrations. As far as the Maker is concerned, symbiotes are evil, nasty creatures. They're not worth becoming friends with, and not for nothing, his plan is to get rid of all of these creatures, codices and all. And by this particular point, we learn he has completely taken out the Life Foundation symbiotes and separated them from their host. And he is about to hook each of them up to his machine that he has finally finished, which will extract each codex from them. And this is kind of a sidebar, but if you weren't really 100% sure on how connected or disconnected Sleeper was from Null, you can actually tell by looking at the 5 symbiotes as the Maker has them lined up next to his machine, and you will notice Sleeper is the one on the very end, and he doesn't have the same Null spiral built into his symbiote the way the other 4 do. But that said, Dylan does not want anyone to go into those machines. He is trying to make a stand against the Maker. And the Maker doesn't seem to care. And as a matter of fact, we find out that what the Maker had promised Dylan and Spider-Man as well as Venom, that the machine was harmless, that it wouldn't hurt anyone, come to find out that it's painful as to be put in that machine. To the point that the father of Sadie, who was bonded to Riot, if he could put together any other cogent sentence other than, "Oh God, please it hurts, please make it stop, oh God, the pain," he would probably pray for death. And little Normie Osborn hears this, he sees this, and he doesn't want to be put in that machine. He knows that that is what the Maker is going to try to do next. And Dylan, being his father's son, actually comes up with a plan because he decides to do what Eddie would do. He decides to do something stupid. The interesting thing here is that, and the reason why I kind of spoke about him knowing that he's his father's son, I'm going to go on a limb and assume that he overheard most of, if not all of the conversation that the Maker is having with Venom, because that conversation pretty much let a lot of secrets out of the bag about Dylan and Eddie's relationship. Not to mention the reality of what Dylan is. Now, we don't know how much he heard, but I'm gonna go on a limb and say he heard enough that maybe he can put together and connect the dots. But long story short, he comes up with a plan. Dylan decides to go get the strap, and when he pulls up on the Maker, he threatens to take him down if he even so much as tries to put one more person in that machine. But instead of actually shooting at the Maker, he's actually using this as a distraction. He blasts open the containment units holding the Life Foundation symbiotes, and they get the hell out of Dodge. But before they can completely get out of the Maker's warehouse hideout, each of the 4 Life Foundation symbiotes latches onto the Maker, and thus Hybrid is reborn. And I gotta admit, this is a pretty freaky thing because not only does the Maker look eerily like the Xenomorph Queen from Aliens, you have this ultimate malleable substance known as the symbiotes bonded with one of the most malleable beings in the universe. And now Hybrid is going on a tear trying to capture little Normie Osborn and young Dylan Brock. When Normie allows himself to be sacrificed, Hybrid doesn't want Normie Osborn, because you gotta remember how symbiotes work. Symbiotes, when they bond with someone, they get all of their memories. So the Life Foundation symbiotes, thus Hybrid, knows what the Maker knows. And I can go ahead and tell you right now, if the Life Foundation symbiotes know that Dylan is a Codex, much less Eddie Brock's son, I guarantee you Carnage knows as well, because that's exactly what they want. They don't want little Normie Osborn anymore. They want Dylan, and the Maker is going to do everything in his power to take him. Now, we do get a really interesting moment where we kind of get to see a flash of what Dylan is. Like, we start to see his eyes go this really weird milky gray color, and even Hybrid recognizes it. He sees that Dylan is about to become what he was meant to be. But before this new Hybrid can do anything about it, 4 individuals who aren't exactly fantastic, but are the closest thing to it, pull up. Dylan is saved at the last second from Hybrid by none other than Wolverine, Spider-Man, The Thing, and Captain America. Now, this isn't entirely the Fantastic Four, but honestly, I think this might be a better Fantastic Four than the Fantastic Four could ever have hoped to have been. And if you're gonna get saved by 4 people, it may as well be them. Now, one of the things I do want to say here is that, man, I really like what they did with a lot of this, with a lot of these books. I love what they did with Deadpool. I like the fact that Deadpool had a lot of great moments of levity, like Deadpool books are wont to do, and they even found a way to kind of keep it tied in. And I actually think that it was very interesting to see that instead of it being Cletus, actual Cletus going after Deadpool, that now it's Norman Osborn who thinks he's Cletus, which this just opens up the door for all kinds of shenanigans. And of course, with Symbiote of Vengeance, I feel like that book really sets us up, not so much for more Absolute Carnage, but it does set us up for some really cool Ghost Rider stuff down the road. So I don't know, that one I feel like is great, but is also not as connected as one would initially seem. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors in that issue. That book is way more Ghost Rider centric than it is Absolute Carnage centric. And of course, with Venom number 18, I feel like we're really starting to get somewhere with the thread on Dylan, and I feel like Donny Cates keeps screwing with me. He keeps putting little Normie Osborn in danger and keeps getting him close to getting his little fade run, and every time something saves him, so I'm wondering how long little Normie Osborn's luck is going to keep going before it runs out. But anyways, you let me know. what you thought about Absolute Carnage this week. Sound off in the comments.
So hey, you made it to the end of the video. Awesome for you. If you enjoyed this video, and if you made it this far, I don't see how you didn't, do me a favor. Hulk smash that like button. And if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, make sure you click subscribe so you can become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers, and tap that bell so you know when I post up. Also, feel free to go check out my Patreon, where if you chuck in a buck, you can get early access to most of my videos up to a week early. And if you have time, make sure you swing by nerd901.com, where you can find more of my content as well as other amazing stuff. Anyways, until next time, I love you 3000 plus Ultra!